Welcome to the Ask JP podcast. We tackle the issues of the day. I'm JP here with my co-host Monet Brignac Sullivan, and our special guest today is my colleague on the city council. I would say my partner in crime. I'd say good trouble, but I don't think all the trouble I get into is good. So let's just say partner in crime. Councilmember Lesli Harris. Hi, Lesli.
Hi.
We are so excited to have you here as our first council person, other than me, who has to be here.
Oh,
You're the first one who's voluntarily come on. Right? Is that right?
Yes. Are you going to make the rest of them come on?
I mean, some of them. I mean, I only want to talk to some of them. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, if I think there'll be an interesting interview, sure. I think you're going to be an exciting interview. So let's get into it.
Sure.
All right. What was the thing that most surprised you when you first got into office?
Well, my office was a nice lavender color, so that was shocking.
I heard about that.
The district office before, so it was a lavender color that we painted to a nice.
It seemed like Barney's secret cave, like Barney's den.
It was really interesting. It was purple with a lot of glass furniture. So we sort of moved that out and revamped it because I think having like a nice office space is important to productivity. So there had been a lot of furniture out where everybody sits. We kind of revamped that. So that was shocking, but also a good project. And it's only gotten better from there, JP.
Well, I mean, I recall the lavender office, and it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot. I mean, I can't imagine as a constituent walking in and just being like, what is this nonsense? But I will say, I remember when I first was like coming in, I literally caught you and Allison painting your office.
Yeah.
Like you guys put the elbow, like, to be clear, listeners, literally she was there with the chief of staff with rollers. And I swear, Allison have her kids with her?
No. And let's be really clear. I did not make anybody paint. It was not first time.
Oh, no.
What happened was
what had happened
was that we scouted literally every office and the bowels of City Hall for office furniture that actually kind of matched. So she helped with that part. I actually hired painters to come in.
God bless you.
And do the painting because I wanted it to be done quick.
Yeah,
sometimes you have to outsource things for things to go quickly.
I was very fortunate in that Smooth as Silk Jason Williams was my predecessor, so his office was perfect. I just put my stuff in it. I didn't change anything. I mean, like I walked in there, I was like, oh, like wood window paneling. It's like, okay, I'm good to go. So I mean, it's really, just so you know, out there, like in the land, you roll the dice when you get elected. If you're moving into an office, whether it'll be super cool or like immediately pop Property Brothers.
Yeah.
And I will say that, I mean, I will say that I don't think glass furniture has been a good look since like Miami Vice. So okay.
Yeah, okay. But otherwise, I mean, other than the color, I think, what's shocking to me, I think, is how involved this council is, because we have to be in trying to really right the ship that is the city of New Orleans. So I think the frequency and the length of meetings has been shocking. I know we had a meeting, what was it, last Thursday, that kind of got heated. I tried to get you to recess it and you said no, let it play out.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good decision.
Well, I mean, I think you and I have a very similar mentality on being on the council, and that we both kind of are like here to fix things, knowing that fixing things might make us unpopular.
Yeah.
And I think that we came in following a lot of council members who kind of just want to make sure that they did just enough to get reelected.
Yep.
And I think that's the completely wrong mentality to have if you're going to actually move the ball forward. I think it's easy to kind of like tread water, but we've been treading water for like 50 years.
Yeah, listen, I think the Prime Minister of New Zealand who just resigned, I think that's profound, right? I think that sometimes you have to come in and be a crisis person, crisis politician, which I don't like to call myself a politician, but apparently I am. A person of crisis to sort of get in there, do what you need to do, and do as much as you can. And if you need to get out, get out. So I think that to me really signaled that you can just be a person in crisis, try to right the ship and leave it for good for the next person to come in and not, can I swear on this podcast?
You can absolutely swear. Absolutely. You can absolutely swear. In fact, YouTube changed their rules. As long as you don't swear in the first like 2 minutes, like you're covered. You can just curse. It's fine now.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't want the thousands of people who are watching.
Yes.
To be offended.
No, I think,
but yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said. You and I've talked about this offline of like, if in one term I can get what I need to get done and roll out, then that's cool. If I need to, run again because there's unfinished business, or I think I can still do good, then, that's a decision that has to be made at some point.
No, I mean, I think that goes right into our next part about you and I are both kind of workaholics. Like we're there early and leave late. And it's really hard to maintain that work-life balance. I mean, to your point with the Prime Minister of New Zealand, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Her first name is Jacinda. I can't remember her last.
Yeah.
But her farewell announcement was honestly, a lot of people were just like, "Oh my god," and I was kind of like, "Amen, sister." I was like, when she was like, "I'm gonna be there for my kids start school, and I'm finally gonna marry my fiance," I was like, "She gets it." Like, I mean, it gets to a point in doing this work where it's hard to make those calls where it's like, do I go to my kid's thing or do I go to that meeting?
Right.
And I mean, you just got married, literally just got married. So I'm surprised that we don't have your husband. He's probably watched this video just being like, yep.
Yeah, right. Oh, I get to see my wife on YouTube. Yeah, I think it's rough because we actually care. Like we actually care about what's happening and care with our whole heart. I mean, I think I say it all the time. I'm the most cryingest person on city council, only followed by OT. Because I care. I'm not jaded by sort of the politics. I'm coming from, I think, an outside perspective. But it's hard to maintain that caring and life and mental health. So I think we, have to take time out for ourselves, for our families. I just got 2 new puppies. I mean, that's sort of restorative to me.
What kind of puppies did you get?
Oh, they're pit mixes, but like little teensy ones. So
wow.
If I was doing this from home, I would have one here with me, but I had.
I mean, that is. I have therapy children, not therapy dogs, and I kind of envy your therapy dogs because my youngest is still like in the puppy phase where he's like on me. Other 2 are kind of like they tolerate me, but that's just having a preteen daughter. I guess that's what I'm told. Monet tells me that, right? Monet, like just the period of hating your father.
Yeah,
I can't. I'll never grow out of it. But
True. I mean, like,
well, anytime you need a therapy dog, you let me know because I got a brother and sister, and they're both jerks.
They're both jerks.
Yeah, but that's okay.
I mean, but the thing is, you can only be cut by the things that love you. So if you interpret them as jerks, that's because you love them and it can cause pain to you.
That's right. Yeah,
like children. Right. Speaking of that work-life separation, how have you adjusted to the I'm in the grocery store, I'm on the street, can I have a second?
Yeah, that's been tough. I mean, I think that probably less known than somebody. I can tell you I went to church with Helena and people were like flocking her and they thought I was her assistant.
Wow.
And I was like, girl, you go ahead. That's fine with me. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think that people really want a minute of your time, and I always give that minute. Anytime anybody wants to meet with me, no matter what, unless they're crazy, and we've had some crazies, I'm happy to meet with people, happy to sit and talk. What I made the mistake of, and I don't know if there are any aspiring politicians watching this among the thousands who are watching, I made the mistake, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm saying it, of putting my home address on my election documents.
Yeah. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, rather than using like a PO box or a campaign headquarters. So people literally will show up to my house and knock on my door, which is kind of insane.
I mean, it's one of those things where, from my perspective, like I had a little more experience before you doing that, like being a senator. But being a senator is nothing like being a councilperson. Being a senator, like political junkies knew who I was, but like
Yeah.
the average person didn't. The way I deal with it is if I have to go to the store for anything, my entire family abandons me because they used to, at first they went with me and they're like, oh, you have to go get milk. Well, I'll go for the trip. Now it's like, dude, milk with you takes 35 minutes. So yeah, you got to go by yourself. So
Yeah.
it's been an adjustment. But I mean, like today, on the way here, I had to stop at Walmart. I actually saw Liz Williams there. We're chatting for a second now, and she was like, "Everyone's stopping to say hi to you," and I was like, "You can't talk. Your husband walks anywhere." And like, she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You're here by yourself because you're smart." She's like, "Yeah, I am here by myself." But I mean, but the thing is like people. I feel like when you're elected, you have to be accessible, and people, generally speaking, are pretty respectful of your time. Like they'll stop and say, "I need a minute," and like I would say 99% of the time, it's a minute. Like, hey, and then usually I'll exchange information with them, and some officer will file up. And occasionally, there's someone that'll abuse that minute. But honestly, what I noticed a couple of weeks back is a lot more people than we think recognize us and don't come over.
That's
And I
true.
think especially if you're with your family, a lot of people are pretty awesome. It's kind of like, oh, he's with his kids. I'm not gonna go there and bug this dude. Yeah. I get swamped by myself with my family. It's Monet. Let's see. Why don't you ask us a question that's in your brain right now?
Okay. What's actually in my brain right now is the Cardi B quote is, "If I see you and I don't speak, I don't fuck with you," which made me think I'm talking to you. That is why.
Yeah.
They don't want to. Okay, so this is originally for Lesli, but I say we can turn it on JP too.
Oh, wow. No. Okay.
I would like to hear a fun fact about each of your staff members. Let's let our guest of honor, Lesli, go first.
Thank you. Well, you want me to go through or you want to like back and forth?
Why don't we do one each and go back and forth? That'll be funnier.
Okay. So Matthew, who everybody knows outside of me, hashtag Matt for mayor, was a political activist. And literally somebody sent a picture of me, my friend Richard Perk, who got me into this job, meaning talking me into me. And Matthew with a bullhorn at a women's march in 2018. And it's just funny that we were occupying the same space at the same time. Now, I just found out this weekend. And then he did this awesome speech in support of women's rights that I'm just like, why aren't you running for office? What are you doing? So that's fun fact. He also throws a Halloween trivia party that I attended.
It would be very, I don't think I'd go up against Matt in trivia. He seems the kind of guy that takes trivia really seriously.
He's like a trivia master. He's really good.
That's terribly, okay. James in my office, James Baker, everybody calls him JD. He has this
what?
DJ. Oh no, not JD, DJ. Everybody calls him DJ.
Not today, JD.
No, that's not JD. James has this tremendous gravitas and is always wearing dark suits. And sometimes we go places, they mistake him for a pastor.
I can see that.
And he does not like that. And many times we'll just randomly look over to him and be like, "Can we have a blessing, pastor?" He gets really annoyed. Monet has seen this. He does not like to be called a pastor. He's a very faithful, good person, but he's like, listen, every black man in a dark suit with a shaved head with a Morgan Freeman voice is not a pastor. And I was like,
so I know what to ask him for on Wednesday.
Yes.
Can I get a blessing?
Yes, as a blessing. He will give you the dirtiest look that a human being can give one on it. He's probably gonna kill me for having brought this up, right? Monet probably. Okay, your turn, Lesli.
Allison's my chief of staff, and she is like such a mommy. She's the mom of 3 girls that she's always prepared with like cold medicine because I always have a cold in this building. Right now I have a cold. Or it's mold or something.
It's mold. It's not cold. It's mold.
Yeah. Okay. Mold, cold, whatever. So she always has medicine with her no matter what. And she'll also bring snacks to me like I'm a child. And I appreciate that so much.
In a similar vein, my chief of staff, Crystal, we literally call her mama because we have more snacks. We have snacks in our office to Helena and our offices.
We have snacks on snacks on snacks.
We have snacks and we have drinks on drinks on drinks. And whenever someone like, man, I really wish I had an Oreo, she'll be like, I know just where an Oreo is. Crystal has been with me. She was my dad's legislative assistant when he was in the legislature. I have literally been friends with Crystal for about 21 years.
Wow.
She was one of the longest serving legislative aides. She has so much knowledge, but I will tell you the one dangerous thing about Crystal. So Keith was my previous chief of staff. Everybody loves Keith. And Keith is like, he's like the balm for the soul. Whenever you feel like you're about to lose your temper or lose your cool, Keith's like, nah, man, calm it down.
Yeah.
If I am burn it down, JP, she is gasoline.
Yes.
Like she is like, oh, we should burn it down twice. Like
All of it.
everyone's like, no, Crystal, don't egg him on. And she's like, yeah, let's go after him. And I'm just, I mean, it's like the rest of like, it used to be Keith was the one that talked me down. Now the whole office has to like separate us because if we're left alone, we'd set the whole of City Hall on fire.
I think that's why we're not allowed to sit next to each other. I think
no, I mean, you and I would just be like, you and I would just be like,
I'd be like, say this.
I mean, if Leslie Harris and JP Morrell sat together, there would be a charter amount for a city manager. I mean, that would likely happen. We're just like, you know what? This isn't working out. We just don't need mayors anymore. City manager.
We still have
That's why we're separated by Helena and Freddie. Like there's two people between us. If we're together, we just be like, that's burnt down. Burn it down.
Yeah.
I mean,
screw this.
Yes. So okay, next staffer.
Liz, who's I call her my land use guru. So the staff calls her Big Sadie. And Sadie is Helena's, I think, legislative person. I don't know what Sadie does. She's awesome. But they call her Big Sadie because they hang out all the time. And Liz looks like a bigger version of Sadie. So I think that's pretty funny. So if you see Liz,
pretty well, Sadie. It'd be funnier if they called Sadie Mini Sadie.
True.
I think we should start that. I think we should start that. We should be like Big Sadie and Mini Sadie. Sadie will be like, I'm Sadie. It's like, yeah,
you're little.
But you're like a small Sadie. You're like a little Sadie.
Like
well, I hate to talk about the dead while they're in the room, but Monet, have you met Monet? Monet is my comms person, and she is the youngest in our office by what, like 15 years?
Yeah.
It's like 15 years. I mean, and it's like, I swear she gives us like big Zoomer energy sometimes, which is kind of like, you people are so old that don't understand anything. Like, she will try to explain a meme to us, like, we should do this meme, and we'll all be like, what are you talking about? And the frustration that comes out of her and trying to explain basically what's happening in the world, and we're all old people. Yeah. Imagine like a college student trying to explain the internet to their grandpa. That is like Monet trying to explain comms to the rest of us.
Yeah,
like,
no, I get it.
Honestly, she has infinite patience. She celebrates, I think, every holiday that's fun.
Yes.
And I did not know St. Joseph's Day was a thing until Monet came in and was like, this is a thing. We take this seriously in this office. We're gonna have cookies. We're gonna have St. Joseph things you put on the wall. And it was like,
yes.
All right. Yep.
Yeah, those cookies were bomb, by the way.
Monet,
amazing. Fun fact about Monet, not to talk about people, whatever.
Monet
worked on my campaign and was the mastermind for a lot of comms that we did that were just gorgeous and beautiful. She also organized Coffee with Lesli. That was really impactful.
Yes, at CR Coffee Shop.
Yeah, at the CR Coffee Shop. And
wait a second, so you recycled that for me? I wasn't the first one, Monet. What the hell?
I was the test case. Monet and I often text each other about drag race situations, including the Santos drag race.
I will reveal something on this podcast. And you might as well knows where I'm going. Monet knows where I'm going.
You've done drag?
No, although I would do drag. Like you kind of just ruined my entire thing. Monet has gotten me hardcore into Catfish, the MTV show.
Ah, okay.
Like it's wildly inappropriate. I'll be like, "Did you see some sort of Catfish?" And she'll be like, "I did." And everybody else will be like, "Dude, you're 44 years old. Why are you watching Catfish?" And I'm like, "She got me to watch a couple episodes, and this is so intriguing. Like, just the kind of people that want to go on Catfish and like be on Catfish. Like, this show it never ends well. So if you go on Catfish, you definitely have been catfish. Like, honestly, if someone's like, you should go on Catfish, you should not get embarrassed and just break up with that person because you're definitely being catfished.
Yeah.
So
I need to add it to my list of things to watch.
Only so many people's cameras can be broken until it's
okay. I have the last two staffers I have are new.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really have funny stories about them yet, per se.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel comfortable making up or exaggerating the few interactions we've had thus far. Although I will say, Julia Zuckerman and she definitely is of the burn it down mentality. She's definitely on team burn it down.
Yeah, I got that vibe from her. We met and she asked me if I was Jewish. I show up to all these Jewish events and I'm like, no, but my husband is. So I also have two staffers, Lauren and Raven, who are fairly new. So I don't have quite the depth of knowledge of their funniness. I will say Lauren, who's my comms person, actually was at Loyola at the same time I was at Loyola. She was a student and I was a chief of staff. So that tells you the age difference. I'm feeling old.
That's like a reminder every day that you're old, though.
Oh yeah, and then Raven literally is taking a gap year, so I could be her mother, literally.
Wow. No, I don't. Nobody. I mean, I guess theoretically I'm old enough to be Monet's father, but I'm not nearly mature enough. I'm not nearly mature enough to have a daughter of that age. I cannot handle my 12-year-old. She runs me. So I mean, I can't imagine if I can't. I don't even want to think about it. It gives me nightmares. I'm having like nightmare. Skip. Okay, so next thing. Let's talk about some issues. Let's talk about crime.
Do we have to? Can we just talk about nothing?
No, let's talk about crime. Let's talk about crime. Well, I mean, talk about crime right now. Seems like we're talking about nothing, but we're trying. And I think,
I think that's what people need to know is, and when I respond to emails that literally people are despairing. I mean, I had one guy who emailed me and was like, there were gunshots and then some graffiti artists were like yelling at me and then something else happened. And he's like, I just feel like in despair. And I get that. But what I said to him is we as a city council are at least on this issue trying to row in the same direction. I think we've been pretty unified in our approaches, which is a sort of two-prong approach, invest in our youth and our kids. I mean, the meeting today, I think, was really, really good. So we could hear what we need to be funding instead of somebody telling us what we should be funding. That doesn't work. And then also supporting our NOPD. So, I mean, I think that we're pretty unified on those two fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue I feel like when I talk to people, I think we've been very, not to steal the word from our presenter today, from Ceasefire and from Kieran, we've been very intentional in that we wade into the crime space when we feel like we have solutions to crime.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people take that we're not screaming about crime every day and being angry about it on social media and everywhere, that we're not taking it seriously. And really, it's more of an issue of, I think we as a body, I know you and I particularly talk about all the time, I sleep about, I mean, I think about crime constantly.
Yeah.
I'm constantly worried about what the next issue we can do. But I feel like part of being in leadership is it's not our job to like pour gas. Like we're not congressmen. We don't go out there and stoke the fears of people to try and develop a cult of Lesli or a cult of JP that we're fanatically going to secretly find crime, just have faith in us, like solve crime. I think it's more of, we're trying to listen, trying to figure out solutions and trying to solve the problem. And there's this line I try to use. I've been using since we were fighting with Ferg last year. It's like, we don't want to make you feel safer. We want to make you safer. And part of the conflict we constantly have with the administration is they are just messaging and make people feel safe. And I feel like the average person knows whether or not they're safe. They know whether or not they're safe, their kids are safe, their property is safe, their livelihood is safe. They know those pressures. And if we're out there kind of blowing smoke up their ass, like some people did on Meet the Press the other day about how COVID's the problem why we have crime and it's all solved, no one believes that. And to try and like tell people that, I think insults their intelligence, and it makes them even more hopeless, because if you can't admit publicly there's a crime problem, and I know there is one, what that tells me is A, you don't have a solution, and B, you think I'm stupid.
Right.
And I think for us, we are always trying to find new ways of targeting all the principal factors that create crime, as well as addressing
old ways that actually worked in the
Right.
past. The point
Well, I
about
mean, yeah,
ceasefire.
yeah. I mean, it's rough. And I mean, if you didn't see the meeting today, just to recap, we had presenters from Ceasefire and Cure Violence NOLA, and these were the different organizations and groups that had programming under NOLA for life when Mitch Landrieu was mayor. And what people forget, because everybody's like, consent decree, and I was like, we were under the consent decree the entire time Mitch Landrieu was mayor, and we had historically record low crime.
Yeah.
And what we saw there was a combination of initiatives, disrupt crime, and somewhat resource to kids. And you had a robust NOPD that kind of worked. And I mean, crime was different. We obviously had the crack cocaine problem in the 90s or stuff like that, but we had a handle on it. The challenge we always have as a city, every city has, is whenever you have something that's working and it's expensive and the problem seems to go away, people defund things. And I feel like part of our problem right now is every program that was working, whether it be a police program like the Tiger Unit or a violence interruption investment program like Ceasefire, Cure Violence NOLA, and the like, when everyone felt like, oh, that is solved, they just kind of took their feet off the gas. And that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's funny. We sort of defunded not us, but programs were defund. Yeah,
right.
The city defunded programs, but did not defund the police. Right. So it's, when you think about working on both ends, and I think we really do have to eat the elephant at both ends, or whatever that saying is.
Right.
I think that we need to think about parity for social programs, mental health programs, and also funding NOPD. Listen, I love my commanders. I love my NOPD folks. Are they overworked? Are they stressed out? Absolutely. And so anytime a community person says, what can we do? I'm like, say thank you. Say thank you to those officers. If you want to adopt an officer during Mardi Gras, you can do that. And I can put it up on my social media. You can too. Right. But they're, I've had people, NOPD officers, snap at me and my office when we're saying, hey, we heard this complaint from this constituent, and they're like, and I get that. So yeah, anything we can do to increase recruitment and retention. I've talked about this during the campaign, continue to talk about programs. Housing, I think, is something that.
Oh, did she freeze? There you go. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
How do you feel that crime has affected your district specifically?
I mean, specifically, we know that crime is up in District B. I think, JP, you and I are going to be on TV talking about that tomorrow. We know where the chop yards are. We know where the shootings are happening. They're happening in Central City again. So the 6th is super hot right now. And, we're trying to do everything that we can to resource them. But I think bringing back and thinking about the Tiger units, the special ops units, partnerships like we're talking about with ATC, et cetera, that's something that we really have to push for. The problem is, JP, with all of this stuff is we're not the implementing body.
I think that's really the thing we have to constantly remind people is, if the council could do NOPD policy, if we could sign contracts, if we could sign MOUs, we'd do all of it.
Yep.
I mean, what we do is what you saw this last couple of bills that are being filed in the last couple of days, we're trying to provide funding for all these different things. We're trying to urge and recommend they do that, which is like as much you can tip the hat to listen, I have money, just go do this thing. But at the end of the day, we can't make the NOPD sign MOUs with the other law enforcement agencies. We cannot make the city fund NOLA for life programs like Ceasefire NOLA and Cure Violence. I mean, we can say these are important and they should be funded. And I mean, we have some powers. I mean, like I'll tell you right now, I've been very candid until we kind of start burning the candle on the prevention end. We gave NOPD a tremendous amount of money at the end of last year for this year. Unless I see some real movement on trying to get the programming straight, I'm not interested in getting NOPD more money. And I will tell you, just because you didn't ask, but like what freaked me out, remember when they hired the consultants and one of their first recommendations was to close the 6th?
Yeah.
And it was like, everybody was kind of like, wait, like you literally have the most violent crime happening and most danger in the 6th. And the solution by the out-of-town consultants was to shut down the 6th and just move the officers elsewhere. And I guess have them like patrol the 6th like it's a no man's land from Mad Max or something.
Well, like, right. It's a designated danger zone. Thank you.
Like they can put a fence around the 6th and just be like, listen, this is where the purge is allowed every day. And we're some cops in the morning to help people escape to work and guard them. But it was like, it gets frustrating because we know, generally speaking, where resources are needed. I think the thing that most frustrates me as a council person, I know it frustrates you, is that, and I think part of why many of us were very frustrated yesterday with the Meet the Press story was that we're constantly trying to convince people in the city that government has the sense of urgency to deal with the crime issue. And whenever we try to appease like the different industries who don't want to talk about crime, whenever you try to hide that crime is the number one issue, people feel fundamentally betrayed. Like you're literally trying to say it's more important to present the appearance that they were safe, so tourism will come, and not actually make them safe.
It's gaslighting, basically. Not to use that word, but
I love that word.
I mean, y'all said it, not me, because y'all said it, not me. I'm just gonna.
I mean, I think the problem that we faced coming in is that there were a lot of problems that nobody acknowledged, and I think that the Meet the Press interview yesterday was sort of harkening back to "there's no problem, look over there, Monet," as they say in Drag Race. And I think what we've tried to do very intentionally as the council is say there's a problem. How can we address it without actually being the implementers of what we come to? I will tell you, we appropriated money to clear the DNA tests and rape kit backlog. And procurement was like, well, your office, Leslie Harris's district office, should be writing the RFP or the CMU to get this cleared. And I'm like, but that's not our job.
And literally, we pay people to do that. I mean, when you get those kind of requests, you're kind of like, is this how you're flipping me off? Like, is this the backhand? I mean, because at the end of the day, if what's really frustrating to me, and last year, one of the things we did, which people have kind of already forgotten about, remember when we froze the budget of safety and permits and DPW, which by the way, in your district right now, I'd like to freeze DPW's budget again, because the light situation in your district,
it's so bad.
It's
bad and dangerous. It's bad and dangerous.
But I mean, we don't like to do surgery with a hammer, but sometimes when we're the ones in charge of determining all the funding, and then we fund groups, and then they just don't do it. And I mean, a lot of it's like, it's not, I tell people all the time, right now, we don't have a cash flow problem. We actually are sitting on cash. So any excuse that this is too expensive or that we can't afford this is just nonsense. It's a lack of urgency and a lack of being intentional in addressing the issues that make people unsafe. And I mean, you have really harped in kind of our very strong meeting with the mayor's like crime task force. Not to use the G word again, but it kind of felt like they were trying to G word us. And when we were talking, when you were saying, so wait, you want us to call 311 because the lights are out, then you are going to get the lights fixed. Though I've been calling 311 for a year to get the same light fixed. I'm the council person with all the money. But now because you 311 guy are in charge, you are going to fix the light that's a year old and I have to thank you for it.
Right. No, I mean, right.
It was
You
like,
got that right. And I was just like, so there's
I
a
was
new
like,
process? What? Explain this to me.
It was bizarre. I mean, that, and when he was like, yeah, if there's a cracked car on your neighborhood, you're like, if there's a cracked car, I've been calling about it for a year. So you're telling me I have to wait for you to get the photo op ready to pull the cracked car off the road. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, so we created a task force to go behind the people who should have been doing the job for a year. And now, because the task force, they're going to do the job, which implies that without us repeatedly creating task force, basic city services will never work.
Yeah. No, it was troubling. That conversation was troubling to me, but I will tell you that as soon as I got back to my office, I was like, forward. Let's see what happens. I mean, if this is the new process, let's see what happens. Let's see if those lights get fixed. I can tell you that nobody like ran to fix a light. And to DPW's point, there have been instances where people have gotten carjacked or robbed on a dark street, and they call our office and we're like, you have got to fix this, and they get it done fairly quickly.
Right.
But I don't know that I need another step in that process to get these things done.
I also think it sends the wrong message to the people that we had to create a task force in government to get basic city services done correctly. There's one thing if you're talking about, extensive crime strategy, when they're telling us that they're going to expedite quality of life, you're like, this is quality of life stuff that's supposed to be day to day being accomplished. And I mean, it was a very interesting. I'm not going to dwell on it because I will derail this entire thing over. But
my head was on fire after that. I mean, literally,
it was. I mean, it was a thing. So speaking of quality of life,
yes,
Monet, why don't you ask her the question she doesn't want to hear? Go.
Yes. And, it kind of ties back to what we were saying earlier about implementation when people call our office and are like, why isn't this being done? And it's frustrating for them, but equally frustrating for us because if I could do it, I would have done it, with trash pickup. Whenever someone calls and says, Metro or Richards didn't pick up my trash, I wish I could be like, okay, we'll get that solved ASAP, make a call, but it's not up to us. Like, if it were up to the city council to hire like trash trucks and go out and pick up the trash themselves, I mean, JP did that after Ida. Like, yeah. I would do it because I don't like getting those calls either.
We do not pay trash people enough.
No, we don't.
Full stop.
Yeah.
I did that. Yeah. I did that for a month and a half.
Oh no.
Don't pay them enough.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, I remember when you were picking up trash, we had cleanup days. I mean, we were just picking up trash on MLK day with the culture of cleanliness, and we're willing to roll up our sleeves, but again, not on a daily basis when services should be happening. But
I mean, it's so interesting because really the story that broke, the post Metro settlement story that broke with all the behind the scenes games that are played, it's very frustrating that so you and I worked on this, the public probably didn't even pick up on it. When they were doing the original contract negotiation for the last new pickup for service area 1, is it 2 or 1? It's 2. Which one was Metro? Metro's 1. Okay.
Yeah.
People are like, well, you guys should review the contract. And we had double, we don't have control of that contract.
Yeah.
They come to us and go, we signed a contract, pay the bill. And the council actually, for the first time ever, we passed an ordinance after the last trash pickup that requires the council now to sign off on contracts over $1 million aggregate, either over $1 million in a year, over $1 million or multiple years. And part of that was because Leslie and I are two of the 4 lawyers on the council. We didn't get that contract, the new service contract, till what, the day before the budget hearing we're supposed to vote on it.
Yeah, I think they were like, yeah, but it's a form contract that you can get online, and it's just like, but
We're lawyers. We don't. That doesn't mean. I mean, I cannot tell you as a lawyer how many times someone had a standard contract and just wrote provisos in the margins. Like, you have to see the contract. But my point being that there is like, I try to explain to people in government. This is not even constituents. This is not even I'm talking to people in government. I go, listen, I'm going to do you a favor, solid. More people go to jail for trash contracts in the United States than any other type of contract. Like, it is why the mob was in trash.
Right.
We really need to be very careful how we deal with trash contracts, how people get contracts, how they lose contracts. And it has felt like during both these episodes, like, I think they sent a default letter to Richards, last month? December, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was either late November, early December.
Right. But
it's been happening for months.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we only saw the default because during the course of the Metro litigation, that became a point of contention. Like, we're not even in default. You didn't notice us. And it's like, how can you have multi-million-dollar contracts where both the contractor and the city are not communicating with each other? And by that, I mean, they're obviously having like conversations, but no one's having a conversation in writing. And as a lawyer, I know you and I, like, whenever I'm dealing with anything that's a contract, I'm swapping paper. I'm like, here's why I cannot perform. Here's why you should perform. And what's very bizarre for me with Metro, and to the degree with Richards, is how little paper has been swapped between these two entities as far as like why you can perform or why you can't perform.
Right.
And I hate the idea that regardless of what happens, we're going to end up in litigation probably again because of this inability to have that paper trail and conversation.
100%. I mean, this office documents anytime we get trash complaints, and like shoot an email so we can document and we know. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there needs to be a better system. Again, we're not here to necessarily be the city attorney for New Orleans, but it's important that we press the buttons to have accountability and oversight where it seems like there hasn't been.
No, I mean, it's
Thanks for giving us more work, JP.
It's fine. I mean, I honestly, in between me working, but like beating my head against the wall on short-term rentals, I will do trash too. But it's just, and this is I mean, and this, don't want to get this too long. I think I want to transfer trash to something that I think really needs a more full explanation to explain how awesomely you handled a terrible situation. Let's talk quickly about Brown Dairy.
Oh God.
And that, to be clear, just to lay the table, Councilmember Harris inherited the most jacked up, non-overseen clusterfuck I have seen as a council person, in that yet again, we had the city give tremendous incentives and zoning and beneficial treatment to a group, did not follow what the group did. And then Councilman Harris wakes up and tells, by the way, that affordable housing you thought you were getting, it's going to be a short-term rental village.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Go.
I literally had my office kind of try to set a timeline of what happened, because I don't want to put the blame on any one person. And I think there's a lot of blame to share on what happened. I will say that I think the group that initially had it, including David Hecht, some other folks, had good intentions for that plot of land. And because people weren't minding the store, meaning prior people weren't minding the store, that instead of sort of incentivizing and working with, not even necessarily through government, but also through other partners, and we know to reach out when we need help, right? Other business partners, whatever. Because no one was minding the store, it really went to shit. And my understanding is that group sold because they couldn't make the numbers work. They needed additional density on that lot. And the city, for whatever reason, dropped the ball on doing that. They needed a street actually dug up and made into a street again. The city dropped the ball on that. So I think there's blame to share. Going forward, I think that what this is doing is spurring a real hard look at not only residential short-term rentals, but commercial short-term rentals, and where we need to have density and whether or not we need to have a 1-for-1, especially in the commercial context of if you have a short-term rental commercial operator, you need to have an affordable housing exchange there. And you and I can talk about that when we look at commercial stuff. The zoning's jacked. I mean, in MU2, you can do what they did. You can build commercial short-term rentals without coming to city council. And that is a huge hole in what we're doing, in the regulations and the control that we need to exert in order to protect our city. So I think we need to look at zoning and what MU2 and some of these other things really mean and what that permits. And whether or not, if you're going to do something like 50 short-term rental units, which by the way, don't need to have an operator on site, which by the way, what are they going to look like in 10 years? Because they're flying up. I didn't know you could build housing that quickly, but they're flying up.
You can, if you just want to make profit on them for 5 years and then turn
Correct.
it. Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's whenever construction goes up that quickly, it is the cheapest, most front loaded, maximum profit construction. And I want to look
really pretty. It's going to look really pretty for 10 years, and then what?
I think 10 years is generous, but I will say, I think it's important once again to explain kind of what you did or your request from city planning to not only kind of check the growth of the Brown Dairy site, but to really start to close those loopholes. Because I think, generally speaking, I think what Brown Dairy did is we knew we were under the gun to do short-term rentals for residential because that is handled by a federal lawsuit. But I've already had significant conversations to try and put together another request to CPC to look at commercial property, because though it's not under the same timeline, we're not under like a federal lawsuit to do it. It's important to get it done sooner rather than later as far as begin the conversation, because what I don't want to happen is a slew of other companies come in looking at Brown Dairy going, now's the time before they regulate it to go build as many short-term commercial rentals as possible. And I think there's a lot of things we're going to have to do in the interim. Maybe look at even what we almost did with residential and just saying no more permits till we're done with commercial. But I mean, Brown Dairy was like, if there was ever an instance we could say worst case scenario, that is the worst case scenario. I mean, it was bad.
It will be bad. I mean, again, with no on-site operator of 50 units of frat boys and bridesmaids, and listen, I was a bridesmaid and bride. You know what that's going to turn into, and it's literally plopped out in the middle of a neighborhood. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people don't really understand is exactly where it is. It's a block off of St. Charles, 2 blocks. And so there's really going to be impact, and it's problematic, especially in Central City where housing is so scarce. Affordable housing is so scarce. So what we did essentially is require CPC to study going forward regulations around affordable housing and affordable housing developments to see if we can ease some of the load there. But also, if any one of these townhouses or houses stops operating for 6 months, they will lose their STR license, whether that's because of an offense or whether it's something that we do. They will lose their commercial license.
Which, I mean, it's basically, I mean, it's a tremendous effort to kind of staunch the bleeding of a gunshot wound, but I do think it's especially important for us to really talk about the fact that short-term rentals have kind of become the new hotness for people to hang their hat on and say, hey, I can't have affordable housing while having that short-term rental, chaser afterwards. And to your point, I think it's really reasonable to say, listen, 1-for-1, you want a short-term rental, put an affordable housing unit next to it. And if that is what someone wants to do and they want to create housing that the whole city can use, that's great. But I remind people, and I'm going to remind them again right now, and I'm sure some of them will some of the STR operators will send me a hate mail, but your short-term rental license, whether you're a commercial property or residential, is not a taxi cab medallion. It is
Right.
not a, it's not a property right or
A
interest you hold
vested
on to.
property right,
Yeah,
as
it's
people are
not,
telling
it's
me,
not something you
right?
can monetize. It's a
Right.
permit.
Yeah.
It's a process, and we are working diligently to make sure that bad actors don't get a second opportunity to be bad actors. So I mean, it's one of the many things we inherited from previous councils.
Including a budget.
Yeah, a lot, so much stuff. But I mean, if nothing else, I can tell you, I think speaking of both of us, we haven't been bored. I mean, have you been bored?
No, I have not, I have not. There's been a day that I've been bored. Not a day. There are days that I'm like overwhelmed and like crying in my soup. I don't really eat soup, but there are days where I just,
That is
I
that
just
is
shake
kind of
my
an
head.
interesting image of you like hunched over your
Crying
soup,
tears in the
crying
soup.
and crying.
Yeah.
Relatable,
That is
Yeah.
that's impressive. Last question. Mona asked the last question.
Okay. 2023. What are your goals for District B, city council work? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what I ran on and what we continue to work on every day, which is quality of life issues, making sure that traffic lights work and you can actually drive downtown. The crime being really focused. I hate the word laser focused. If I hear that again,
Don't use laser. Do not use laser
or
focused.
meet them where they are. I like these politician buzzwords.
They are politician code words. They are.
Yeah,
Laser focus should be retired. We should retire laser focus.
Resiliency.
Resilience. Yeah, resilient.
Oh
Mr.
my
Mullins is so
God.
resilient. Aren't you sick of being resilient?
Well, I mean, I'm sick of other New Orleans politicians saying we're all resilient. No, we're all just kind of like stuck. We're all here, but I mean, like, it's like getting punched in the face and someone going, "Oh, you didn't fall down. You're so resilient.
You're
I
so
should punch you in the
resilient.
face
Yeah,
again."
with a black eye or
Right.
a cauliflower ear, which is what I feel like I'm going to get after all of this. But I think quality of life issues, making sure that the basics are really taken care of. Lighting. I think blight is huge on my list. I'd love to get a list of city-owned properties that I've been asking for a while now, so that we can address, especially city-owned blighted properties that we could perhaps take and turn into some affordable housing. The homelessness issue is on my front burner and continues to be. I think there are some creative ideas around tiny homes, modular homes that we really should be exploring. And I think it's fun because I like to build things. Like, I'm a frustrated architect, so sort of like thinking through property and how we can rehabilitate homes that are owned by elderly people or people who don't have a lot of money to put in to do repairs and they're in danger of losing their homes. I think that's something that's big on my list, especially as we talk about tranche 2 money. So those are just some sort of scattered goals. I will say, for the thousands who are watching, that we are going to do an end of the year report that should be coming out by next week, year one report for my office. And then you can also please sign up for our newsletters and social media. I mean, I can tell you, Council President Morel, the rest of the council are at every event all the time. And so it's just a lot of activity that you can see on social media, and just kind of follow us where we are.
Well, that is fantastic. That's ambitious. I appreciate it. I mean, I do not hate. I mean, that is ambitious. I think that once again, you and I are going to be burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
Trying to solve the problems of the day. And you have been a tremendous, I will tell you, though I often get heralded as like the grim reaper of short-term rentals. I will tell you that Councilmember Harris is right behind me with the other sickles. So I mean, I think we're both, there are some really difficult issues that I think we're uniquely positioned to address. I think that something I've been very proud of with this council has been, we don't shy away from the hard stuff. And I think kind of my frustration as a resident and as a senator when I was a resident was that we'd know there were things that had to be fixed, but they were just too hard, so you wouldn't do it.
Right.
I think we've shown we're not scared to deal with the hard stuff. And not just that, to have those debates and that fight in public, which is so important. I mean, like, you can't downplay the fact that we've had more meetings talking about substantive stuff than councils had in probably decades of like, we're actually gonna have a conversation on. And I look forward to I look forward to once we get past STR, seeing what kind of other good trouble we're going to get into together, because there's so much. I mean, there's just so much stuff that we have to resolve. We could just, if we could get right with our vendors and have these damn lights repaired on a rotation. I mean, it is amazing when you drive down any residential street and like every other light is out. And I mean, it sounds like such a first world problem, but when you look at the crime stats and where crime is happening, it's happening in the dark spots. That's where it's happening. So I mean,
and we know where they are. We don't need a task force to tell us. We know where they are.
No, you mean to be clear, internet and people watching, I guarantee you, whatever crack house or crack cars out there, Councilman Harris's office reported it to 301 probably a year ago. Probably a year ago. They're like, hey, people are dealing drugs out of this house. People are shooting up in this backyard. Kids are hanging out there with guns. And 301's like, yeah, I'll put it in the queue. We'll put it in the queue. We'll get around to it. I mean, I think Councilman Moreno's nuisance ordinance is going to be a huge help, just because it's going to let us look at these businesses that have really kind of become havens for crime. But like I said, all that stuff's going to be in front. What do I have coming in front of quality of life with you? I have something coming in front of quality of life.
I don't know. I think we have a pretty good one on trash coming up. So, you know, the cleanup.
I had something really controversial. And I was like, I'm going to set the quality of life.
Quality of life.
Yeah. Because I was other meetings. I was like, Leslie, can I come to quality of life? And you were like, I mean, if you want to. And I was like, yeah, it'll be fun. I say it because for those of you who don't know, quality of life is the only committee where there's not a single at-large on it. So literally, I'm a spectator.
Yep, you don't have to do anything.
Well, except beg for the mic occasion. Like, hey, I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over here. Anyway, but thank you so much for coming on. It has been so awesome talking to you. I'm glad that people will get to know you a little better. What are your social links in case people want to follow you?
It's just at Lesli Harris for everything. Lesli, no E, Harris, Harris on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I think it's Council District B for Facebook. Monet, you remember setting that out. And you can email us at Lesli.harris@NOLA.gov, or Matthew Schomburger. That's why I mean us. Matt from #Matt.
Let's be honest. People in the know not to email us. They know who in our office to email to get. I mean, we respond, but certain people, they respond much quicker and on point. Like if I had a problem in District B that was and first I would probably call Matt, not you.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I will say I'm copied on every single email that he gets, and I read every single email, but he has the wealth of knowledge.
He's a beast.
He is.
He's a beast. Another fun fact about James Baker, he taught Matt when they were in Jay Banks' office together. So I wouldn't say he's he's definitely not a proto Matt, because they're totally different. But just thought it was a fun fact. I think James likes to fawn over Matt like a proud papa. He's like, kid's great.
Good. Matt is awesome. Matt is awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for visiting with us, and we will be back next time for the next episode of Ask JP. Everybody have a great day.